Welcome back into Eyes on Golf. I'm Jeff Eisenband, and our guest today is Justin Lauer. And this is an outstanding, I will call it an inspirational episode, because Justin Lauer, if you don't know him, he's our first PGA Tour player on this podcast, active PGA Tour player, and he is an inspirational figure. So many factors could have stopped him from getting to the PGA Tour. Family tragedy, not getting a scholarship to a Division I school, all the bumps along the road on the Korn Ferry Tour. Multiple times he was so close to getting to the PGA Tour, and kind of felt like he had to take a step back because he missed a putt here and there, didn't play well at this point. He's going to get into all that. Of course, we talk Cleveland sports as well and the current state of the PGA Tour. I'm excited to share this with you. Hope that you become a Justin Lauer fan after listening. Other than that, I do want to touch on, before we get into this, we taped Justin before the WM Phoenix Open. We're releasing this between the Genesis Invitational and the Mexico Open at Vedanta. I'll be on the call for the Mexico Open at Vedanta on PGA Tour Live on the main feed. But I just want to address Hideki Matsuyama winning the Genesis Invitational. Incredible 62. Hideki does this sometimes. You know, it felt like when he won the Masters a few years ago, he hadn't been playing as well, and then he comes out and just balls out, blows everyone out. You know, it's more sporadic than it was, say, 5 to 7 years ago, but he's still got it in him, maybe getting healthier from some of those back issues. And we got to say, has put together, I brought it up on Twitter, it's a Hall of Fame resume at this point. When you look at Hideki, maybe not quite there, but he is on the verge of the Hall of Fame. 9 PGA Tour wins. He made a big deal about that, becoming the Asian player with the most PGA Tour wins. That was something that meant something to him, passing KJ Choi, who had 8. And then you add in you think about the Masters, 2 WGCs, Memorial, now Genesis. He's done it at big boy golf courses, probably has a few more wins in him. I'm looking at a Zach Johnson as kind of a barrier, a 12-win guy, 2 major championships. Can Hideki surpass that? Certainly you would think so. He's turning just 32, I believe. That shocked me. Hideki Matsuyama turning just 32 years of age this coming week, February 25th. He'll be 32. So still so much more golf in this guy. I'm excited to watch it. Congrats to him on that Genesis Invitational win. But right now we've got Justin Lauer, who's playing this week in Mexico. He's the guest on this podcast, Eyes on Golf. Let him take it away. Justin Lauer, 3rd year on the PGA Tour now, Northeast Ohio zone, a 2-time Ohio Open champion, people need to know, 2010 NAIA champion, and 5 top 10 finishes on the PGA Tour, and coming at me with a Cleveland Guardians, what is that, spring training warm-up right now?
I think so, yeah. It might even be an Indians one, but we'll leave that. Yeah, it is old school. Yeah.
Well, you are, like I said, we'll get into that. You know, Ohio, born and bred, still in Ohio, making it work on the PGA Tour in Ohio, and this year making it work so far. We're coming at this. This is the Saturday before the WM Phoenix Open. 3 out of 3 in cuts made so far this year. You're in your 3rd year on the PGA Tour. Do you feel like a veteran at this point?
No, not really. I mean, there's some things that I just haven't done yet that don't make me feel like a veteran at all. Um, but some of the younger guys will call me a wily vet, but I think that's just because I'm a little older. But no, I feel old for sure, but I don't feel like a vet. So
You don't feel like, oh, you're showing people around Amex or Farmers, you know, where
no,
all the snacks are, or anything like that.
no.
That's not the case yet. But we will get into that, about how you are in your 3rd year at 34 years old, and obviously you've had an amazing journey. Which, you know, part of the reason that I wanted to have this conversation is I've been watching your journey, you know, more as a fan and as a broadcaster than anything else. And I know we'll get into it, but you definitely jumped on my radar in 2019. 2018, just missing the putt, obviously, at the Korn Ferry Tour finals. 2021, how emotional you were getting to the PGA Tour. So I do want to talk about all that today. Well, we're still talking about you on the PGA Tour this year, 3rd year, age 34. What feels different now than 2 years ago when you were a rookie?
Just the comfort factor a little bit. You know the golf courses, you kind of know where to go, you know where registration's at, you know what to expect. Like this last stretch we had, you know what to expect with playing 6 courses in 3 weeks type of thing. Like you know you're gonna have to get a rental car from Amex to Torrey, like type of things like that. Even though they did give us courtesy cars this year, but you still have to exchange the American Express car for a Tory car, and then you have to. I think everyone drives to that event from Amex at least. Some people might fly to it, but
There might be some people, Justin, that there might be
yeah.
some people that have a way to travel differently. But yeah, I think it's I imagine it's some of those little things that, I sensed it broadcasting a lot of your golf that it felt like last year you definitely felt like someone who was ready to go.
Mhm.
Not that you weren't your rookie season, but obviously the emotion of the decade, I think there's a different taste probably in just getting to the show versus, okay, now I'm here, let's keep it going. And I do want to take us all the way back. I want to go back to this kid in Northeast Ohio. Obviously, Tom, from what I've read, you and Tom Weisgoff are the two most famous golfers from your county in Ohio. Jack Nicklaus making it to the PGA Tour from the Columbus area. You maybe used to see it a lot more. In terms of your journey, where did it start in Ohio?
Yeah, I started playing when I was around 8, um, and like I had always like hit balls around the yard. My grandpa had a bigger yard growing up, so I was able to hit golf balls around there and kind of chase them around. And yeah, my dad took me to play one day, and there was a junior tournament the very next day, and he asked if he could sign me up, and they said yeah, absolutely. So I signed up and played, and I was so nervous I didn't eat breakfast that morning, and I I started dry heaving on the golf course because I didn't have really anything to come out, I guess. And uh, I think I shot 61 for 9 holes and finished second. So it was no, it was I don't know if it's the fact I got a trophy or what, but just kind of got hooked on it from there, and yeah, just kind of progressed every stage from there.
I think at 8 years old, we heard Tiger Woods had probably shot 59 like 15 times, or not necessarily 59 in his case, but
Yeah.
we hear about so many prodigies. For you, obviously, starting at a 8 being almost late for a lot of professional golfers, and then on top of that, being in a place that, and I'm from the Northeast,
Mhm.
so I always admire cold weather golfers for getting it done. When did the dream of playing in college, playing professionally, when did that develop for you?
So I had always wanted to play in college. Like I was addicted to um, the golf channel and like learning how guys came up and whatnot, and like just learning about the whole process. And um, like I obviously wanted to go to the top golf schools, just Stanford, Arizona State, Florida, all the Georgia, all these amazing schools that just turn out PGA Tour players left and right. And I thought it would be so easy, and it was just the complete opposite of that. And I don't know if that's just TV or what, but they just kind of make it look easy, and then you kind of get into that process, and you're like, oh wow, this is like I'm not even close, really. And then like I was an okay junior golfer. I excelled on the local level, played some regional stuff, played some national stuff, but um, never really had big successes. And then high school golf, I got a little better. I won states my senior year.
Not bad.
Qualified individually a couple times. And like I always knew I wanted to play in college, and then ended up at Malone University, and I thought at the time I thought it might be kind of like a step down and maybe like possible transfer at some point, but I fell in love with uh, the program, the coach, and the guys around me, and it was pretty awesome. So
I do want to talk, about when you were in high school, and shout out to also No Laying Up. I should have brought up that you were a young hitter back in the day, so
Yeah.
that was also how I think a lot of fans kind of gravitated toward you. But obviously, when you were 15 years old, a tough time in your life. What happened, and how did that shape you?
Yeah. So I was at the golf course. It was March 26th, 2005. And my dad and brother were unfortunately killed in a car accident. They were on their way to pick me up from the golf course. And yeah, I mean, you see it on the news, you see it on TV shows, you see it in movies, and you never think it'll happen to you, and it did, and it's something that I think about every day. It's just kind of part of my life, I guess, and something that happened to me. And it may I may think about it for like a minute a day. I may think about it for like an hour a day. I may think of it for half the day. It changes just all the time. But no, it changed my whole life. Just the way I think about things, the way I act, just kind of everything. I'm probably a little more tentative because of it. I don't know. It just kind of shaped me as into who I am now. And yeah, a day I'll never forget. Maybe maybe in a bad way, but no, just yeah, just kind of wild for sure. How it actually happened and when it happened and everything. And yeah, so
That was your dad, Tim. Your brother, Chris, was 10 years
mm,
old. You were 15.
yeah.
How were they at that point in your life instrumental to you as a golfer?
So my dad was huge. He's the one who took me to all the tournaments. Both my parents were working parents growing up, so my dad had more freedom calling off work and whatnot. So yeah, he was the one who would take me to tournaments and travel with me and whatnot. And my mom was always kind of with my brother. And Chris he was just getting into golf. I remember I had a deal with the local course that I grew up at in Canal Fulton, Lions Den Golf Course, that we would work for free play, and work was basically picking up the range or cleaning up carts in the evening. So I thought it was amazing at the time. Looking back on it, may have been, uh, maybe even an abuse of power in a sense, but no, yeah, Chris had started to come out a little bit and he was just getting into the game, but he was more of a video gamer slash, this is weird to say as a 10-year-old, but U.S. historian, kind of a war buff. He would set up these epic like battles with these little toy soldiers. I'm talking hundreds of them in his room, and I would go in there, and if I would touch one of them, I would get just absolutely scolded. So I quickly learned not to touch anything when he was doing anything. But no, he was just getting into it, so yeah, it'd be really cool to see like where he'd be today. I mean, he'd be 29. Like you never know what he'd be doing. Whether he could be caddying for me, he could be traveling, he could be living somewhere, and I wouldn't hear from him for like a month, and then he'd call me out of the wind, and we'd talk for 5 hours, type of thing. So you never, you actually never know with him. But no, I miss them both dearly, and I'd basically give anything back to have a day with them. So
Well, as someone who had a placemat with all the presidents on it and could memorize all the presidents by third grade, I think that
yeah,
Chris and I would have wanted to hang out with Chris and talk history with
for
him.
sure. Yeah.
And you've mentioned that about him, but obviously he was only 10, but you've said that he would be caddying out there
Hmm.
for you. So on top of all of that, the ball marker that I believe you still use to this day and have used since you were 15 and you're 34 now is what?
See, yeah. So I used to use it. I still keep one in my bag. I don't use it anymore, just because it was honestly kind of a distraction. I get too many questions about it. But it's just all it is. It was just a white, one of those white plastic ball markers that you see at country clubs mostly or golf courses. And what I would do is I would scrape the logo off on concrete or whatnot on the sidewalk, and then I would just write 32605 Dad and Chris on it. I started doing it in college, and did it up until maybe uh, right around COVID time, I guess, right around 2020. Um, and yeah, it just kind of became too much of a distraction. New guys I would play with, they would see it and kind of ask too many questions about it, and it was just something I didn't really want to answer on the golf course. So, and it just kind of gets kind of awkward if I'll just tell you after the round type of thing, because then
Mhm.
you get them thinking about, oh, what's he going to tell me? And yeah, so no, but I definitely keep one with me as opposed with, or as I keep a couple other things in the bag as well. So,
So at this time, back to Malone University, going to
mm,
Malone from 15 to 18. Now that is prime golf recruiting. It's you
hmm
and your mom, Debbie,
hmm
in the house, and you're trying to figure out your life. And Malone comes calling an NAIA school down the road in Canton. And
hmm
why do you choose them over a potential D1 golf program?
yeah. So when the accident happened, the last thing I wanted to do was schoolwork. If I'm being dead honest, I did the absolute bare minimum just to pass and be eligible. And I would have meetings with teachers and meetings with principal and counselors and whatnot. And they're like, Justin, what's wrong? Like your grades are slipping. Not that they were great by any means, but they slipped. And yeah, I was just like, look, I don't want to be here. I show up just to be eligible for golf. The only thing I want to do is golf. And I kind of knew in college that I would get kind of a fresh start, kind of academic wise and whatnot. And the Division One coaches, the few and far between that were actually looking at me, I think most of them were kind of frightened by the grades and the lack of discipline that I showed in the classroom. So I think that just kind of scared them away. And I still have an email to this day from who a guy who was the coach at the University of Akron this time that he sent to my mom. I don't know if he thought that she wouldn't show it to me or not, but he said that he thought I would fail out of college by the end of the first semester and not be eligible to play anymore. And that was I told him, I was like, look, if I can, if you give me a chance, like you will not have to worry about it. And I really wanted to go to the University of Akron, and it fell through. And it was February or March of my senior year. Like I was getting ready to graduate in 2 or 3 months, and I still had not signed with anyone. And Ken Highland at Malone University, who I had met in eighth grade and was just kind of always around, he called me one day and he asked me what my plan was, and I was like, I don't really have one right now. I'm trying to find a place to play, and he's like, well, the door is open if you would like to come here. And I called him maybe 2 or 3 days later, and I said, yeah, absolutely, I'm in. So yeah, that was kind of it. So
Did your mom show you that letter before college or years later?
she showed it to me like a week after he sent it. So yeah, it was that was in the fall of my senior year during high school golf season, and because I had taken a visit there, and I thought it went really well, and the email said otherwise. So maybe I
Well,
just can't read a room, but
I'd imagine the Zips are still killing them, are still kicking themselves right now,
yeah, you
because
never know.
you go to Malone, you win an NAIA championship, and I probably say it too much, but whenever I have you on featured holes or featured groups, um, I just think it's an incredible nugget that we're talking about guys who were, world junior champions, IMG world junior champions when they were six, or different, U.S. junior am champions. Look at a Nick Dunlap right now, carving
hmm
through the U.S. amateur scene. And I don't know what the NAIA competition level was like. I don't know what the 2010 national championships were like, who was on your heels or anything like that. So what was that like? Well, you were a star on the NAIA scene. Obviously there's not recruiting and there's not professional teams in golf
hmm
looking at you from the professional level, but how did your dream develop while you were there?
Yeah, it was kind of like high school golf. I got off to a slow start. Like I qualified for the team and whatnot, and was in the top five and traveled to every event, but I wasn't I wasn't having the success I thought I would have. Like I was playing okay, and like my score was counting and everything, and uh, excuse me, I didn't get a win until the spring semester of my freshman year, which was our home invitational, and I had started playing better at that point, and I had really started working on my mental game. I bought one of Dr. Bob Rotella's books, and I started just reading it. I think I read it probably 4 times that semester alone, just going through it and just kind of instilling all these things on the golf course, and it started to help a lot. And like my freshman year, I finished. I as soon as I won, I finished second in our conference that year. Uh, Finished eighth at nationals, and was honest. I was playing really well at nationals. I was probably in third or fourth with 9 holes to go, and I think I shot 41 or 42 on the last 9. And I had just started playing terribly. I don't know if it was nerves that I was actually playing too well, or not being in that process. But I remember my coach, he uses the example all the time, just the last 9 of my freshman year compared to the last 9 of my junior year when I won. I mean, it was a night and day difference. And then, like, fast forward to when I won my junior year, I won by 6. I got off to a really good start. The third round, I tied for the low round of the day, and I was the low round in our wave. We were in the afternoon wave. Our team was doing really well, too. But I had the low round in the wave by 4 or 5 shots. Some weather moved in, wind and rain, and I shot even par and just kind of padded my lead, I guess. But the thing that still irks me, though, we played well, and I had chipped in on 18 for birdie to tie us for the lead, and it got us into the final group as a team. And I was just so pumped for that because the one thing I wanted was a team national championship, and we went nuts on the last hole because we were the last group of the day, and it was almost dark, and yeah, we went crazy, and we played okay the last day. We ended up losing by 6, and finished third. But the cool thing about I guess my college experience and my college teams, all of the guys that I went to college with, all the guys that I played with, we were all from Ohio my freshman and sophomore year, and then to make it even smaller, my junior year, 4 of us in the top 5 were from the same county, and the other guy that wasn't in the same county was in my conference that I played with in high school. And then my senior year, all 5 of us that started were from the same county, which made it pretty special. We all grew up playing against each other in junior golf and high school golf, which made it just that much more special. So
We should mention this was at TPC Deer Run, so you were
it was.
scouting. You were scouting the John Deere Classic
Yeah,
early. Oklahoma City was the champion, and it looks like Oklahoma Christian perhaps
yeah,
was the runner-up. So you guys,
yeah,
just those pesky Oklahoma schools, uh,
yeah.
n-
They were the
knocked you off.
powerhouses for sure. They,
The
yeah.
the Bob Rotella book. I want to know what is one thing that you still go back to, that you still remember, maybe that you said, I'm sure you were doing your schoolwork, but you said you read the book 4 times. Maybe you did a book report on it or something like that.
Yeah,
What do
yeah.
you remember reading there?
One of them was like the visualization of it, like kind of visualizing your target and whatnot, and it was kind of like when you're over the ball and you look at your target, you kind of imprint it in your mind, and then you feel it when you're over the ball. For me, it was on. I always felt like, I don't know if you can see the the camera right now, but I always felt like the picture was right here in my mind. So that's what I would picture. I would picture the target, and I could see the hole and everything, kind of in my mind when I would play, and that visualization helped me a lot, just with where I wanted to hit it, where I wanted to miss it, and kind of stay away from and whatnot. So that was the big thing that I picked up on for sure.
So you graduate Malone University, I believe, 2011,
Yes.
and then you're going to spend, and I don't know if you thought this at the time, but you're going to spend the next decade on the Korn Ferry Tour or below the Korn Ferry Tour. If someone would have told you that in 2011, one, would you have believed it? Two, would you have expected that you would stick with golf through that 10-year period?
I probably wouldn't have believed it, and I probably would have stuck with it or thought that I would have stuck with it. I feel like I'm pretty resilient. So, but yeah, I just, it was something I really wanted. And yeah, when I graduated and turned pro, the first tournament I played it's called the Toledo Open. It's run by the Northern Ohio PGA. And I thought it was the coolest thing. I was like, wow, I'm actually playing for money. And I finished third. Um, I played really well, other than doubling my last hole to go from first to third. So, uh, but yeah, it was really cool. And then I played a lot of stuff that winter and learned that I was not that good and that I had to improve quite a bit. And then yeah, played mini tours, 20 kind of 2012, 2013, then 14 kind of got a taste of the Korn Ferry Tour, and then back to mini tours 15, 16, and then kind of Korn Ferry from 17 on forward. So
I guess quick tangent. My Toledo
yeah.
story is that I went to Northwestern, and my senior
Mm,
year was 2014 to 2015. So I drove out with one friend, and I told him, I said, we're stopping at either the Pro Football Hall of Fame or the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You pick, and I'm
okay.
doing the other one on the way back. So he said Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So we stopped in Pittsburgh, went to a Pirates game, went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland, drove to Chicago. On the way back, I drove back with two different friends. I said, "You guys don't have a choice. I booked Canton as our stop tonight. We're going to the Pro
Yeah.
Football Hall of Fame, and we needed to stop for dinner. We were driving on Father's Day 2015, and I looked on the map. I said, we're near Toledo, so we're pulling
Mm.
over. We drove past the Mud Hen Stadium,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
and then we just found a place to eat, and I watched the last three holes of the Chambers Bay U.S. Open at
Oh, wow.
some tavern while DJ missed the putt and Spieth finished it off. And I was like,
Yeah.
we're stopping at this time specifically to watch the end of this. So
Yeah.
that's the only hour that I spent in Toledo. Sounds like you had a more lucrative uh, few days in Toledo than I did.
Yeah. Maybe just that one weekend. But yeah.
That's so those years on the Korn Ferry Tour,
Mm.
how do you stay patient as you are traveling around the country in, not the private jets that we talked about, not that you're doing that now, but not
Yeah.
the same arrangements back then? How do you stay patient in everything that you're doing?
Yeah, it was just kind of, I don't think I really had a choice, to be honest. I was, like 2014, it was all so new to me. Like I finished 73rd at Q school, that December of 13 before that season. And I remember when the commitment lists came out, for, like on Links, which is our website that we find out whether we're in tournaments or not. And I was in every single one, and I was like, this is awesome. And my agent texted me, he's like, yeah, I wouldn't get too excited. That'll probably all change. And then it like in a week, I was like 30th, 40th alternate for every single one. I was like, wow, I'm not even close. Um, and like the thing with the season, with the Korn Ferry Tour, it's like the first 4 to 6 events are all international, so it's hard to qualify or get in
Mhm.
them. So I'm just looking at all these, and I'm like, God, I'm not in any of these. I'm just not even on the money list. I'm just getting buried out here. And I remember doing Monday qualifiers and like just not even coming close. And I'm like, how do guys Monday in? Like, there's got to be some formula. And I finally Mondayed into one, Valdosta in 2014 on this golf course called Kinderloo Forest, which is, I think they still use it
Mhm.
for Q school. It's like 7,800 yards long. It is brutal from all the way back. And but yeah, I'd started playing well, and yeah, I Mondayed in. I think I finished 33rd or 35th, and there was a reshuffle the very next day. Uh, because it was the eighth event of the season, and the next event was the BMW Pro-Am, which is a bigger field. It's 156, and got in that, and I finished ninth somehow. And then that ninth got me into Raleigh via top 25. Got into Raleigh, and I made the cut. And a couple weeks before that, I had found out I got into the Memorial, and so I remember I finished Raleigh. I finished like 42nd, and then I drove from Raleigh to Muirfield that night. I got in like 11 p.m. and I was up at 7. I was at the golf course at like 7:30 a.m. the next day because I was so excited to go play a practice round. Um, and yeah, it was just kind of a whirlwind. But yeah, that year turned out I only made 5 cuts out of 13 events on the Korn Ferry Tour, and got another PGA Tour start that fall. I Mondayed into the RSM, which was back then called the McGladrey, I think.
Yep.
And I missed the cut by one there, and that was I always thought like making the cut in the PGA Tour event, like that would be like my next thing, and I
Hmm.
wanted to make the cut so bad. And I remember having a 20 footer on the last hole, and my caddy was like, "Hey, we need this," and I was like, "Yeah, yeah, I know we do," and yeah, unfortunately, I missed it and wouldn't make a cut on the PGA Tour till 2017 at that point, but yeah, I had my trials and tribulations with Q school, and yeah, I stayed really patient, and yeah, somehow here we are.
You,
So
you mentioned Valdosta. Shout out to Sepp Straka, Vienna to
yeah,
Valdosta. One of the road not taken.
yeah,
But to Q school. So let's go, because I think a lot of people know about 2018. But before we get
hmm
to that, 2017, you're just trying to have a Korn Ferry Tour card,
yeah,
and there, this becomes a theme of Justin Lauer, the bubble boy. What happened in 2017?
yeah. So I made it. I didn't breeze through first stage. I played really well at second stage, and then made it to finals. It was out in Arizona. It's a new venue. Arizona in the fall, or sorry, in the winter, as everyone knows, it's usually pretty warm. There's very little wind, so guys are expecting low scores. The first day, it's like blowing 30 and it's like 55 degrees. It's freezing. I drew the harder golf course that day of the two, and I shoot 3 over, and I'm like, this again, like this is my third time making it to finals. Like I remember just sitting in the play. I was staying with another player and a friend of ours that was a caddy, and I just remember I'm just sitting there, and I was just so distraught after the round. Like I was like, my friend has a video of me. I was like eating a bag of chips. I was like, this sucks. Like this is my third time making it to the finals. I shoot 3 over. I lay an egg. Like 62 was leading. Someone shot
Yeah.
62 that day. I don't know how. And I was like, that. Like I'm gonna have to shoot like 20 under the next 3 days just to have a chance. And my swing coach was caddying for me, and he was like, "Hey, you still hit it good, and we've been on the range for like 4 or 5 days now, and you're striping it. You just gotta." He's like, "If you remain patient, we will get through this." And I was like, "Okay, I'll I'll bite. Here we go." And then so I get the second round. I get the easier golf course, and the wind has died down. It's very calm. It's warm, and I shoot. I think I shoot even on the first 9, and I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm just getting passed up. I'm like near last place." And then I shoot 6 under the last 9. Like I finally catch some fire, so I get back to under par and whatnot. And then so I'm 3 under, and then I have the harder course, and I shoot 3 under the next day. So I'm 6 under. So I'm like, okay, I'm starting to play better. Um, but I obviously I need a good one the last day because scores are really low. Like the last, Sung J M was playing. He was like 24, 25 under already. In the last group. I mean, a lot of guys just cruise because really all you need is I think it's top 10 or it was top 10 gets you the first 12 starts, and top 45 gets you the first 8 starts. So I'm just trying to get to that top 45 number somehow, and I shoot 64 the last round, and I think I finished, it was like 5 under in my last 5 or something like that with an eagle in there, and I birdied my last. I made like a 15 footer on my last hole. I can remember like that hole perfectly. I hit a perfect like 10-yard cut off the tee, like a shot that I had been working on for years because I used to play a hard draw, and then I finally was able to develop this cut shot off the tee. And I think I had 125, which is uh, like a perfect full gap wedge for me at the time, and I hit it just perfectly right where we were looking, 10 feet right of the pin, and it kind of spun back right a little more than I wanted to, and I remember catching a glimpse at the leaderboard, and I was T39, and then it like changed to T40 real quick, and I was like, okay, you probably need to make this because that T40 is not going to last. And I made it to get to 14 under, which was I think at the time like T32, and I ended up like T41 or T42, so it got close there a little bit, but yeah, finally had guaranteed starts, and yeah, and then it was just finally cool to go to those first couple of events, and even though they were all international and we're all going to the Bahamas where Firefest happened, which none of us knew at the time. And then that documentary comes out like a couple months after we're there, and we're like, oh my God, we're literally where all this went down. And so yeah, and then yeah, you can
Wait, the event,
yeah.
the Bahamas event was happening during Firefest?
No, so funny enough, I think it was Firefest happened in 18, and it happened in Exuma.
Yeah.
So it would have happened. Um, so everyone talks about 2017, the event in Exuma with the crazy winds, and I think one guy finished under par, um, and uh, I think that was Kyle Thompson. I think he finished 2 under and won by 4 or something like that. And but yeah, Firefest had happened maybe 3 months after that event, and so in Exuma they have this thing called the regatta, and all these sailboats come in for this week, and that guy who ran Firefest decided to have it that weekend. And he was like, why can't I get any workers for this event? And they're like, well, this is our biggest event of the year, like we're not going to help you out at all. And then Firefest happened, and like all the tents and stuff. And if you watch the documentary and then you look at an overview, like a Google Earth overview of that course in Exuma, it literally happened right next to the golf course, and it's just wild to think of all those people kind of stranded there in the wind and the rain, and those box lunches that they were giving them with like one slab of turkey on there, and yeah, it was I couldn't believe it. And the how I found out, my wife texted me in 2019. She was like, "You should probably watch this documentary. I think it happened close to where you're at." And we were in Abaco at the time, and I'm like, "Guys, I think we should watch this." We had an Airbnb, and we watched it, and we were all shocked that this happened. That just happened right there. So it was crazy.
Kyle
And
Thompson, 2 under
yeah,
in 2017.
yeah.
Nicholas Thompson, Andrew Young were second at even par. So yeah, he was the
Okay,
only
so they
guy.
won by 2. Yeah,
And Sung J M won at 13 under the next year, and Marty Doe went 18 under in 2019. So the scores
yeah.
did get lower after that.
We definitely had calmer conditions than they did. So
So that was 2017. You make the
yeah.
putt
Hmm.
for Q School. 2018, a little bit different stakes. Korn Ferry Tour Finals. You come down to the wire at the Korn Ferry Tour Championship, and you know you have an 8-footer to get your PGA Tour card.
Yeah. So I had birdied 17. Because I saw a leaderboard, I was projected 26, walking the 17 tee. So I birdie 17, and I figure that would certainly help. I don't know if that'll do it, but it certainly helps. It's got to put me close. And it's another tournament where scores are low, so a lot of birdies are happening. 18 is a par five. I get the tee ball in the fairway, and I've got like it's like 232 or something like that. I had like maybe like 221 cover front edge, maybe 224 cover over a bunker. And I hit it, and it's a little right of where I'm looking, and it hits that backside of the bunker that I was talking about, and it just shoots all the way to the back of the green against the grandstand. And I get relief from the grandstand. I get a drop, and so I have this kind of like ticklish downhill chip slash pitch shot, and I hit it. I hit it pretty decent because if it was one that if I hit too hard, it was one that honestly I could have hit in the water, which was right behind where the pin was. Um, and I hit it pretty good, hit it to 8 feet, and I had an 8 footer that broke about half a cup outside the hole, and I hit a good putt to this day, maybe under red just a hair, and it caught the low lip and just kind of went maybe 6 or 7 inches past, and um, I could kind of tell by the crowd's reaction. The maybe 12 or 13 people were there that that I could tell that that putt meant something. And then watching the broadcast, I was 26th going into the weekend, projected at 26th after that putt, and stayed there. And it came down to like, I want to say like $358 was the difference or something like that in prize money, which I mean comes down to less than a shot. And like those previous finals events, like the one in Columbus at Ohio State, I missed the cut by one. Um, the one in Cleveland a couple weeks later, I finished 34th, and I remember I left like a 30 footer on the last hole, like on the lip. And then I finished ninth in Boise the week before the tour championship. So like it's just all these like different scenarios. Just one shot would have saved me and got me onto the tour. But in all honesty, I probably wasn't ready for the PGA Tour at that point. I might have played well at the beginning there just because I was playing well, but I don't think I was ready skill wise for the PGA Tour at that time. So maybe a blessing in disguise. But
I'm saying you missed by $490. So,
okay, yeah,
maybe maybe that makes you feel better. It was a little,
yeah,
a couple hundred more.
yeah,
But I think it's interesting too that you say you weren't ready because obviously you couldn't know this at the time. But you
mm,
wouldn't get your card in 2019. You would keep your Korn Ferry Tour card, but wouldn't
hmm,
get your PGA Tour card. And then, of course, COVID happens. You have the 2 year essentially Korn Ferry Tour stretch. No
yeah,
one gets the promotion in 2020. So now you have to wait from that moment. You have to wait 3 years. And then
mm,
2021, it feels like we're right back in the same situation. And again, you're coming down the wire trying to get your card.
yeah, yeah. So I finished 30th in the kind of mega season there. I had it as high as 19th at one point, I think. Um, and but I was always kind of like from 20th to 30th. Excuse me, but I missed the cut in Omaha, which was the last regular season event. It's where they do the card ceremony and everything, and I wasn't too happy then, and but my wife has always been super positive throughout all of this. She's like, "Hey, you still have a chance. Like Corn Ferry Finals, you've played well in all of them. You know all the courses." And yeah, I went to Boise and played okay. I think I finished like 40th or something. Um, then Columbus, or maybe 30th. I don't know. It played kind of harder that that week. It was a little more firm than previous years. And then Columbus, I finished like 50th. So I think I was 40th on the finals points list going into the week. So I knew I needed a good week, but I knew just like I knew that scores would be low on that golf course just because it's soft. It's the weirdest thing. That golf course plays firm and the scores will be around like 8 under par winning and stuff like that. But if it plays soft, we can just tear it up for some reason. And yeah, I get off to a decent start and first two rounds and have a good third round. Put myself, I think I was in the top 10 at that point. But one thing I did that week that I really never done was I deleted the PJ Tour app from my phone, and then I didn't look at a leaderboard at all. And in my interviews that week, I asked them. I was like, I will do the interview on one condition, that you don't tell me what place I'm in or what I'm projected to finish. Um, and yeah, all those interviews, I give hats off to him. I think Kevin Price gave me an interview. He didn't say anything. Kira Dixon gave me two interviews that week. She didn't say anything. And then obviously the memorable one with Kira after I somehow shot 3 under in my last 9 holes to get that last spot and get up and down on the last hole. That interview with Kira at the end there, it was just kind of just all those years where I finally got one, where I finally got the card and I finally did it. It was yeah, it was just kind of like a huge weight off my shoulders, really. I don't really know how else to explain it, but yeah.
Two things there. One, Kevin Pryce, you mentioned him. I think he never actually sent you. You asked for the 2018 putt that you missed for him to
Yeah,
send it to you, and he never sent it to you, if I'm not
no,
mistaken.
he did send it to me.
Oh, he did.
Yeah, he did. No, he sent it to me, and I thought I would use it as motivation. And turns out that is not a good thing to look at over and over and over. So, no, that was part of another of my journey. Like I had to really improve mentally and focus more on the positive aspects of everything. And the mental coach I was talking to was like, she was like, you need to get rid of that video, put it away, hide it, do something, and you need to focus on more positive videos. Um, and yeah, I started watching one. So Kevin was actually back to the Q school in 2017. He actually recorded my final hole. So I have that putt that I made to finally get guaranteed starts. So that was the one I started watching, and I started telling myself like, "Hey, you would not be in any position that you are in now without that putt right there." So that was that kind of helped propel me. And but yeah, Kevin and I, we talked about that video. We talked about the video of me missing in 2018. I mean, Kevin and I, we've become good friends, and and him being a Bills fan and me being a Browns fan, we can certainly share our demise at times, and lately our successes in the NFL.
I,
But
I was going to
yeah,
say, Kevin,
it's been fun.
longtime Korn Ferry Tour media guru, but
Yeah,
now got the call for the PGA Tour this year. So now he's following you
yeah,
guys around.
yeah. No, it's been fun to see him. Him and my wife get along really well, and no, it's been fun to see him. So
And then you mentioned the interview with Kira in 2021. Obviously emotional for good reason. You finally, that 10-year journey going back to graduating Malone culminates with you getting your PGA Tour card, the number 25 in the Korn Ferry Tour finals, the last player to get your card via Korn Ferry Tour regular season and Korn Ferry Tour finals that year.
mhm.
And of course, you being you, the humility, you take the time in the interview to shout out Taylor Montgomery, who you bumped out, who had come so close. I believe he was also close in the regular season as well. I want to say it was 26-26.
He
And
was,
on
yeah.
top of that, he played in the US Open that year at Torrey Pines
Before they changed the rule.
before
Yeah.
they changed the rules. So he chose to do that, so didn't earn points. And you, in that moment, have the wherewithal to shout him out. What was going through your head then?
Um, I don't know, honestly. I just figured like I mean to have that kind of double whammy pulled on him like that, like I had been in that position. Um, so I just knew like how he felt and whatnot, and yeah, I just wanted to let him know that I was thinking about him, and I knew how he felt, and I knew how good of a player he was, and obviously he's shown with the success he's had the last 2 years, um, and even 3 years with that in the 2022 Corn Ferry season that he had. But then last year he played so well, and then this year he's gotten off to a good start as well. So no, Taylor's a great guy, and I just wanted to let him know that I was thinking about him in that situation. So
And of course, he came back and got his card via the Korn Ferry Tour the following season and got off to one of the hottest PGA Tour rookie starts we've probably ever seen. Him and Eric Cole flying around or I should say, Eric Cole got off to a slow start last year. I
yeah,
think they kind of switched. They swapped powers in about
yeah.
February.
If you could merge their seasons together, it would have been
Would have been spectacular.
a very historic season without a win. But yeah, so
I'll tell you, we've spoken. I mean, I didn't expect us to go about 45 minutes talking about your
yeah,
pre-PGA Tour career, but I think it's so compelling, and I'm glad that we have done it. Not to gloss over it, obviously, you have your PGA Tour rookie year in 2022, in 2021 to 2022. I have the pleasure of calling your hole in one, the AT&T Byron Nelson,
yeah,
and you, of course, right back where you always end up, right at the end at Wyndham. You're trying to get into the top 125. You just miss. You get
hmm
emotional again. Turns out, now the putt wouldn't have mattered.
yeah,
So it's okay. And then
hmm
you end up you go back to Korn Ferry Tour finals. You take care of business anyway. You get your card anyway via 125 because I don't know if you heard, but certain people left the PGA Tour around then.
yeah,
All of this emotion going on. I mentioned off the top, I felt like that second year on the PGA Tour last year just felt like you had a sense of belonging more. When you got
Hmm.
that card again, how did it feel different?
Oh, it was just, I mean, obviously with like Wyndham and everything, like, and just like the grind that your rookie year is, like, you're not getting into every event. You still have to do Monday qualifiers from time to time, and then you try to get some momentum built. And I had some built, and I was playing decent golf at the time, and yeah, just with it was like the one thing I will say, I'd never pictured my first 3 years on tour being so volatile, I guess, with
Mm.
like the guys leaving, the the lawsuits, and the who's staying, who's going, the what's happening, the just
You're like, this
everything
is the
about it.
PGA Tour.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a crazy 3 years. I mean, and I was on the pack my rookie year too, so I had a front row seat to everything that was going on. And yeah, it was just kind of wild. And but yeah, as soon as I got my card back, and I had a full season, uh, and I knew the golf courses, I knew what events I was going to play, and I could kind of make my schedule a little more. And then I started playing events that I hadn't played before, which was cool. A lot of the bigger events. And but no, it just felt, again, with the comfort factor and everything. And yeah, it was just kind of just a weight lifted off your shoulders, and you know what to expect more. I feel like it's a golf is a much easier game if you know what to expect. So
Of course, pre-signature events too, before the no
mm,
cut sort of events, being 125 versus, like I said, when you were essentially 50th in that
mm,
Korn Ferry Tour upgrade, you're going
yeah.
basically, when you add in major medicals and past champions, I mean, you're going from 115, from 190 to about 115 in the pecking order.
Oh
So
yeah,
that's,
yeah,
or so 125, 190 to
yeah,
125. That was a big deal. I
yeah.
do want to, I know you haven't talked about it that much, and I feel like it's not necessarily what you love to talk about, but you did bring it up. Just the difference, you coming in this long journey to make the PGA Tour, grinding on the Korn Ferry Tour to finally be making PGA Tour checks and living this life and seeing the landscape of the way that the superstars are acting and the way that everything's going down. What have your reactions been the last couple of years? And from your viewpoint, right in the thick of it, what have you seen?
I mean, I learned a lot my rookie year, just how the tour runs as a business. And in the end, with kind of all professional sports, it is a business. There is a bottom line that the tour, as a running company, has to meet. And there's just so much that goes into it that people don't see. And like you read on social media, all these armchair quarterbacks that think they have all the answers and think that they know everything. I wish they could sit in on a pack meeting and know what goes on, and know what we talk about, or sit in a player meeting with Jay and know what's happening and stuff like that, because it's crazy with all this. And has it been good for the game? Maybe it's given uh, it's given the media more stuff to write about, more stuff to talk about, which is always good. I mean, I don't think there's any such thing as bad press. I do think that is a true statement. But a lot of this comes a lot of with this comes a lot of controversy. I mean, Live is run by I I don't know if it's a questionable regime, like where all the money comes from. Uh, I haven't driven too far into it to learn enough. I feel like I know a little bit about it. I think everyone has a price. I certainly know I have a price. If I was ever offered, I would probably consider it. And then with all the rumors about those guys maybe being able to come back, if an agreement is actually at one point comes together, you kind of never know what will happen to the guys that have either just been suspended or resigned their membership. It is wild that we don't have um, a set of rankings that include some of the best players in the world. Um, I do think some of those guys that have left, I do think some of their careers are maybe tarnished. Um, I'm sure their competitiveness has gone down maybe a little bit, simply from a comfort factor. But obviously, you see with guys like Brooks Koepka and Taylor Gooch, they're still playing tremendous golf. Brooks won a major last year, but one of the things will be interesting this year, with Liv being in its third year, some guys aren't eligible for the majors anymore, so they have to play maybe a little more golf. You see, like Joaquin Niemann playing a little more DP World Tour to try and get eligible for the majors and whatnot. And yeah, it's going to be really interesting. This next, I thought we would find out a lot come December 31st. It was no shock to me that they pushed the agreement even further. And then this whole thing with Strategic Sports Group that was just announced, we still have a lot to learn from that. Yeah, honestly, I'm just trying to show up every week and play golf. And if we become one big tour, it'd be great. I just want to keep playing on the PGA Tour as long as I can, until I am ready to call it quits, maybe, or until they can't tell, or until they tell me I can't play anymore. So, but yeah, who knows? I just want to keep playing as long as I can. So.
Where were Jimmy Haslam, Dan Gilbert, and the Dolan family, right? Jumping in for didn't jump in
Right?
with SSG.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if I'm being honest, maybe the Dolans are a little too cheap for that price.
We're
The
talking about
Haslam,
the Guardians Dolan family. We
yeah,
can talk about
yeah,
their cousins with the Knicks and Rangers a whole
yeah,
other time. I
yeah.
do want to,
So,
you being on the inside and seeing this, you talk about at some point we are going to see probably more deals. We'll see how SSG deals with things. You mentioned being on the pack your first year. You've now seen the tour. You're in your third year. I know that when it comes to fans, especially you think about Memorial and some of the hyper local aspect of you being an Ohio guy, and for a lot of Ohio fans, their guy. What does a peak prime golf world look like to you? What can be fixed, adjusted, improved, and how do we get the fans excited for week in, week out golf?
ah, it's such a. There's so many answers, but like so many. There's so many answers, but so very little correct, obtainable answers. I think. Obviously, a. I think maybe a. Honestly, what I think will happen. I don't know if it's obtainable. I don't know if it's fiscally responsible, or I don't know if it could happen. I think a world tour will happen at some point. It'll be the top 50 um, with 10 extra guys, who will be relegated, not and promoted, just kind of week in, week out, maybe a series type of base, kind of what you're seeing now with the Swing Five. But I think it'll be like a ten number there. I think the PGA Tour will eventually become a feeder tour. As weird as that sounds, but what I do think will happen is, if Live and the PGA Tour merge, um, then I think you'll see the top PGA Tour events, something similar to the designated events now, along with the majors and maybe the top Live events. As well as the top events maybe around the world. Like you have the BMW Open on the DP World Tour, some of their Rolex Series events, and then like some tournaments in Australia, like the Australian Open, Australian PGA, stuff like that. I think you'll see a schedule formed out of those, maybe something similar to what Rory was talking about, and it would be. I think it'll be very small fields, 60 to 70 guys, no cuts, a ton of money, a ton of world ranking putt points, a ton of FedEx Cup points, or whatever type of cup points
Hmm.
we'll have at some point. And I think it'll be very hard for those guys to get kicked out, unless they get lazy and non-competitive and they're finishing last in every event, to where, like I said, that 10 number will come into effect and there will be some relegation and some promotion at some point. And then you'll have your regular PGA Tour events, like your Napa, your John Deere, your um, your Phoenix Open, your regular run of the mill
Hmm.
events. I think those will still exist with similar purse sizes. And then I think you'll see maybe like a DP World Korn Ferry Tour kind of merger, and maybe have a one tour over there, one tour over there, over here, and kind of feeds into the PGA Tour, and then a feeds into the World Tour. I think that's what will happen. But yeah, a lot has to happen before that all happens. So uh, that sorry if that was kind of a rant there,
No,
but
look,
it's
I think that's probably a more thoughtful answer than we've heard, than I think a lot of people
yeah,
are, I think people's answer changes week in, week out too, how
for
you feel
sure.
about it.
Yeah.
I think it's fascinating hearing you say that because we talked as we were getting ready. I asked you, your upcoming schedule, and we talked about just the Mexico Open at Vedanta that's coming
Hmm.
up, and how getting from LA to Puerto Vallarta to Palm Beach is its own sort of journey that
Hmm.
guys have to make. So, you hear tennis, right? Tennis from a world tour aspect or Formula One, that's part of the fabric. That's what people are
Yeah.
used to. I
Yeah.
don't think that golf is used to it as much. I think there are guys that love to be able to hop around hour flights, 3 hour drives, place
Hmm.
to place in the US. And I do wonder about the groans that would come from, hey, there's going to be, like you said, there's going to be a European swing, there's going to be a Middle East swing, there's going to be an Asia swing. I think it's going to be interesting. It's kind of careful what you wish for sort of situation that so many of these players want to, they say that they want to, I think, make the most money and go around the world and do all this, but then are they actually going to be excited to do it? And yourself included, I know you've got a young child. If
Hmm.
you were at that level and all of a sudden you're traveling around the world, how would you feel about that?
It would be tough, but honestly, if I me and my family, my wife and my daughter, we travel as a family. I mean, we my daughter is 13 months old and she's been on close to 50 flights already, which is pretty wild to think of. But yeah, obviously, if you're playing that fictional world tour, you're probably flying private most of these places, which is a convenience,
Hmm.
and with that convenience comes the convenience of traveling with your family and the luxury of traveling with your family. So it would be something that I'm sure a lot of guys would do. But it's honest, golf is just not, it's not a normal sport like at all. Um, if I could
Shout out Kyle
steal,
Porter.
yes, Kyle, even though Kyle and I don't really get along on Twitter, I will admit that he has it right. Golf is not a normal sport. It would be different if we were match play every week and it was like tennis, to where we had matchups all the time.
Hmm.
But you just can't do it. I think it would, if you did do something like that, it would have to be a lot of 9 hole matches, and it would have to be a lot of doubling up. Like, hey, you won this match, you have to wait until this match ends, then you guys will start on 10. Like, um, and then maybe the semifinal matches would be 18 holes, and then the finals matches would be 18 holes. But yeah, it would be wild if golf was like that. But golf is not a normal sport, so that's where I think it may not be attainable. But who knows?
Yeah, I mean, as you say that, I've been thinking the whole fabric of the sport and the history is changing. That right? If we had a world tour, well, how do you judge Tigers and Sam Snead winning 82 PGA Tour events
Yeah.
with guys winning? I mean, I think about it right now, the way that some of these players, top players, have their signature event schedules. Just the pure percentages of it, they're not going to win as many events as Tiger and Phil and guys did for and VJ for the last few decades when
Hmm.
they could, Tiger could say, "Hey, I'm going to go play, um, the Buick event that was in Michigan every year, kind of around, he could go pick that off every year. And it was a good field. Maybe guys came because it was Tiger, but,
Hmm.
would Tiger have had 71 wins if he was playing against loaded fields every week? It's going to be hard to judge moving forward. I do want to, again, you've been so great this last hour, and I do have some more questions I want to ask. And one is,
Yeah.
you've been very vocal that your goal is to play in a major. and
Mhm.
you have
Yeah.
not played in a major yet. I will tell you, I looked it up before this interview. The PGA Tour, PGAtour.com has PGA Championship standings for the last,
Mhm.
the PGA Championship points are from PGA Championship to PGA Championship. Do you know
Yeah.
where you are on that list right now? Do you want me to tell you?
Uh, I think I'm probably like 108, maybe somewhere between 108 and 120. And I know it usually takes between like 60 to 80 to get in.
So you were at 120 last time I
Okay. Yeah.
checked through Farmers. So I think it's like you said. I think it's 70 technically gets in, or
Yeah.
70 not already. Whatever the not. I believe it's just 70.
Yeah.
So
I think 70
you're
gets in, and then it usually goes down to like 78 with alternates and
the
whatnot. So
select
yeah.
few. So I'm pointing out the
Yeah.
PGA Championship. Obviously, open qualifying for the U.S. Open. If you wanted to go for the Open, go for it.
Yeah.
If you win a PGA Tour event in the next few weeks, that would solve a lot of the issues of playing
It
in
would for
majors.
sure. Yeah.
But what is your next goal between playing a major, winning a PGA Tour event, making the FedEx Cup playoffs, which to this point you still haven't played in? What are some of the goals?
Yeah, they keep changing the rules on me every year. So I no, yeah, obviously I want to win. I think my good is good enough to win. It's just like the fields are so deep, guys are so good. Like so much has to go your way to win. And I've had a 54 hole lead, and that obviously didn't go my way. I was playing with Max Homa, who was arguably playing the best golf of his life at the time, and then Danny Willett, who is a Masters champion. Who's maybe finding some mental demons at that point. But yeah, I mean, I was right there in the thick of it. With like 7 holes to go, I think I was one off the lead. So
You
yeah,
got
I was.
that was a great front row seat to a great finish at the
Oh
format.
my God, it was like so. I actually did a podcast with a Browns writer yesterday, and I tried to tell him it was like Max was the Browns, Danny was the Steelers, I'm the Bengals, just kind of sitting there watching. Um, the Browns are down by 14 with 2 holes to go, or like 10 minutes to go. They score. There's all of a sudden 2 minutes to go. They get the onside kick, but they don't score on that possession. And then the Steelers are driving, and then they throw a pick six from like the 2 yard line or something like that. Like that's literally how it went in football terms. Like it was wild, that finish.
Specifically in AFC North terms.
Yes, for sure. I could not believe like couldn't I was sitting there watching it, and I could not believe it happened. It was wild. But that like I said, it's not a normal sport at all. It's golf, and I guess that's kind of why we play. So,
I was
but
looking
yeah,
back at.
back.
Oh,
Go
go
ahead.
on.
Sorry.
You
No,
go.
but back to my goals. To win, obviously, I just want to be more consistent. I want to make a lot of cuts. I want to have a lot of good finishes. I want to make I want to do everything that everyone wants to do out here. I want to make the FedEx Cup playoffs. I want to compete, not just one week. I want to compete a lot of weeks and be there and get that adrenaline flowing and get that nervous feeling of like, wow, like your life could change this week. And would it change? Who knows? Um, if something great were to happen. But I like my wife and I have life goals that we're trying to accomplish as well. So I'm worried about that. I'm trying to be a dad as well, and that's been it may have had a detriment to my my game the last year, maybe early last year, but it has been the biggest blessing to me. My daughter is the love of my life, and I wouldn't have it any other way for sure. So
I think, and that's, you've always struck me, you've been so open and emotional about things in a way that how many PGA Tour players do we see that we don't get to see the emotion, right?
yeah.
Whether it's on the course, everyone's stays as steady as possible, or off the course, guys, kind of can answer questions robotically. You've never been like that. At the top of this podcast, you talked about, after your dad and brother's passing, that still affecting you to this day. It sounds like from a sense of anxiety.
Hmm.
How do you navigate all that? Chris Kirk has talked about his challenges, kind of even as a PGA Tour player, printing money. How when he misses a cut, he went through a time that he felt like, how am I going to provide for my family this week? I came
Hmm.
home with nothing. How do you deal with the anxieties of your family and being a PGA Tour player?
It's just I've been in a lot of therapy ever since 2019. Really is when I um, kind of got introduced to it, and I learned a lot. I've learned a lot about myself and how I think a lot, how my brain works, and how the human brain works and whatnot, and the psychology of it all, and what anxiety is and where it stems from, and like just simple things as what like food can do to your brain and like stuff like that. So I've I've experimented a little bit with some stuff here and there, some meditation, some audio stuff, and I think it's something guys don't really talk about because on tour, I mean, some guys look at that as a weakness. I mean, but it's a big part of our society now. Obviously, like the mental health awareness and whatnot, and it's something I'm very aware of, and it's something I go through a lot, and I'm always trying to improve. Will I improve it and master it? Probably not. I don't think it's something you can master. I think it's something you have to work on and improve all the time and take time for yourself and whatnot. And at the end of the day, I'm trying to be the best father I can be, the best husband I can be, and the best golfer I can be. And if I can do those three things, I can say I've done well for myself. So
I think that's beautiful. On top
thank
of
you.
that, what's different about your mental approach today as opposed to, say, a decade ago?
Oh God. Well, I'm a lot older. So just I just know how. I mean, we're so. I think we've been introduced through so much in the last decade, just technology wise, just has how the world works and whatnot, and you just kind of have to take it as it is, and don't get. I definitely don't get caught up in things as much as I used to. Obviously, when you're in college, you think you have the world figured out at times, and you think it like obviously like that's why they say it's the best 4 years of your life because you're kind of living in la la land to a point. If you like if you're hanging out with your friends every day and like golf, like playing golf in college, like you're basically playing in member guests. Like you play like in five or six of them, and then you get to play your postseason events, and then like you're partying, you're hanging out with your friends, you're practicing, you have to go to class, but at some point you're just trying to graduate. So uh, yeah, it's just at least that was my mentality. But yeah, I'm just a little older, maybe a little wiser, and I say that maybe just a little wiser, but yeah, it's I don't know. Life's a funny thing, so I'm still trying to figure it out. I think everyone is at some point, but yeah.
I mean, it's incredible. Like, you're 34. Um, I think it's hard for fans to put it all into perspective that you're the same age as Rory McIlroy and Ricky Fowler,
Yeah,
right? So you think
very different
about
careers.
those guys, because I've said it a million times that Eric Cole, who's a year older than you, just won
Hmm.
PGA Tour Rookie of the Year and is
Yeah.
older than those two guys, Rory and Ricky, who, we've seen you can find some of the pictures of them playing against each other at the Walker Cup. And,
Hmm.
um, they were really in our lives going back to 2008, 2009.
Hmm.
You think you were just starting college around then. And so it's a different path that you've taken. And then you say, I asked you at the top if you feel like a veteran on tour. It's a whole different approach to everything. So obviously
Hmm.
you've gained different mental experiences than they have. I want to ask two different hole-in-ones, or I call them hole-in-ones. Daniel Chopra chews me out, says it's holes in one. Either way, uh,
Yeah.
so the AT&T Byron Nelson one, which I
Yeah.
called, which I think is that your only hole in one on the PGA Tour,
PJ Tour. Yeah,
but you also had a hole in one at the Cleveland Open
I
on
did.
the Korn
Yeah.
Ferry Tour at home.
Yeah.
Which is the better hole in one in your mind?
Oh God, probably the one at AT&T. Uh, just because of the crowd and everything. I just wish my reaction to both of them was better. So The AT&T one, I was literally just in shock that it went in because I had had such a crap weekend. Like I had
And
played
I
so
think
good
you
the
were in
first
like
two
the
days.
third to last group or something. Like you were in one of the last groups, I want to say.
The on Saturday I was.
Yeah.
On Sunday I was in the first group off the front with Xander and Pat Perez, and Xander was like 10 under par for the round. It was one of the best rounds,
Yeah.
probably the best round I had seen on the PGA Tour. Um, and Pat was like maybe 3 or 4 under, and like I was so afraid to talk to these guys, and like they turned out to be so cool. And like Pat and I were just talking about like PXG before that, and Bob Parsons a little bit before that. And so like I don't know if I like had a comfort factor on that shot a little bit, and then I was able to see Xander's shot, and then like I looked at my caddy JP at the time, and I was like, it's just a perfect little kind of chip punch 9 iron, and I hit it just exactly how I wanted to, and it just went in. I was so shocked that when it went in because I had played so bad the last like 33 holes. I just wish I would have like celebrated more and like gave it something. I don't know. But Pat gave me a weird hug. I don't. I still look back on it like I don't know what he was thinking, but no, that was probably one of the coolest moments of my life. Just in front of, I don't know how many people were there. I heard it was close to 5 or 6 thousand people on that hole alone. But yeah, it was really cool.
They packed that in. They're
They
trying to
did, yeah.
be a little adjacent WM Phoenix Open number 16.
They're trying. No one can outdo Phoenix. Phoenix is in its own, but yeah, they're definitely trying there. And then like with the Canadian Open and the rink is pretty cool. Uh, yeah, and then you on the call, the bucket that was pretty good. So I
Well,
enjoyed that one.
I said, and I was on the call with Jane Crafter, and
Mm.
I said, I said bucket, and you, I think, shared something on Instagram about that, and I
Yeah.
started saying I called. So then last year I called Hayden Buckley's hole in one at
Oh,
Sawgrass,
at
which
Sawgrass, yeah.
was, I mean, that must have been like 8:30 a.m. in the morning. He was
Yeah.
like the second group I think to get to 17. So we
Yeah.
really weren't. You're not. You can prepare as much as you want, but you're not expecting it, and it
Yeah.
goes in, and there's not, later on, Aaron Rye and Alex Smalley had hole in ones that
hmm
week with
Yeah.
big crowds, like
hmm
Saturday and Sunday afternoon. Hayden Buckley is Thursday morning. There's a crowd at 17, but not yet. And
No.
I said to everyone, I was like, should I have said bucket? Like, should that be my hole in one call after? And a bunch of people were like, no,
No.
don't do that. But so you got that. So
Yeah.
I was glad that you got that.
Yeah.
Phoenix, it's coming up this week. I honestly
Yeah.
don't know if I'm going to put this out this before Phoenix or after, but I do want
Okay.
to ask, what's it like
Yeah.
walking to the tee at
Oh,
Phoenix?
it's nerve-wracking. I mean, as soon as you play hole 10, you're right there because 10 green is right behind 16 green, and you're right there. You won't like if you're on the back nine, you're in it. 10, 11, 12, you're kind of in it. 13, 14, you get away from it. But 14, there's an entrance, so you get to people watch pretty good because everyone's walking back and walking out. And usually all of them are just hammered beyond belief. Then 15, you get back into it, you start hearing the murmur of it, and then you walk through the tunnel, and it is pure pandemonium. I mean, there's 17,000 people on one hole, and they're on top of you. It's not like any other par three. Like Sawgrass, they're kind of away from you. They're at points there might be as many people there, but I mean they're on top of you, and you hear things that you don't want to hear on a golf course. That's for sure. So,
Well,
but
do they
no,
have a nickname for you yet?
no, I don't think so. I hope none of the Thunderbirds are listening to this. So maybe hold out on releasing it till afterward. But I'm sure something will be brought up, whether it's about Cleveland sports or something. But yeah, you hear some crazy things out there, and I am going to wear a Nick Chubb jersey at some point this year. So
Let's go.
yeah, it
Wow.
should be pretty fun. Yeah.
Why Nick Chubb?
I feel so bad he didn't get to play. God, and the Browns, they had such a good year, and he's probably my favorite player in the NFL, next to Miles Garrett. Yeah, I think he's the coolest NFL player. He's so good, and he stays out of everything. He doesn't say anything stupid. He just goes about his business, and it's just, I think he's, other than the fact he went to Georgia, I kind of can't stand Georgia. But other
You
than
don't
that, yeah.
you don't think the sleeves will be a problem? Like we see a lot of basketball jerseys. No Donovan Mitchell coming out.
No, no. Mitchell would be cool. Garland would be cool. I honestly thought about the LeBron high school St. Vincent St. Mary jersey, but as soon as Nick Chubb got hurt, I was kind of like, yeah, I'll probably do a Nick Chubb jersey. But no, the sleeve shouldn't be an issue. I've made some swings with it already. So
We'll get the St. Vincent St. Mary's will come out one of these years, the old
yeah,
Irish green.
yeah, maybe
Just
maybe when he retires. So.
you mentioned Xander, that round, that 10 under round.
Mhm.
On the PGA Tour, maybe it's that round. Has there been anyone that you've played with that has just blown you away out there?
Yeah, probably Xander's one of them. Just the way he goes about it. Um, and I noticed like every tournament that him and I are in together, I see he prepares the same way every time. He's super down to earth. Um, the data that he shares with his caddy Austin back and forth over shots is pretty cool, and just like their whole process of everything it's admirable, and it's pretty cool. But Xander's up there. Trying to think of who else I've played with.
Well, you
I
played
played
with
with
Max that final round.
Yeah, seeing Max get it done, obviously, I learn a lot from watching people get it done. I played with Colin last year when he got into the playoff at Rocket Mortgage, and then I've played with Hideki twice. So Hideki is kind of funny. He just kind of goes into your bag and starts looking at your clubs. He's a huge club nerd, and it's kind of hilarious because you kind of just sit there and you just wonder what he's thinking. But no, it's been great to get to know some of these guys and play with them, and I just
He
learn as much as I can. So
he's thinking Mizuno and Srixon pay me so much to use Japanese equipment and wear Japanese apparel. But
yeah,
if I was ever going to do something else, let me see what else is out there.
yeah, right.
Um,
So
but again, I know your daughter. You were nice enough to. She was down for a nap, and she's probably going to get up soon. So I do want to get you out of here. But
yeah,
you mentioned the memorial getting the sponsors exemption when
hmm
you were on the Korn Ferry Tour, really a few years before you get your PGA Tour card. I believe you said that was 2016 or 2017 that you first got the exemption. Do you
14.
have a
Yeah.
relationship with Jack when you got it? Did he, how did he treat you as an Ohio guy?
So that year I met him was the first time I met him. So I won the Jack Nicklaus Award in college. To make a long story short, I didn't get to go because I got invited to a tournament in Spain that summer, um, to represent Team USA. So I had to miss the ceremony that year, so I didn't get to meet him. But I met him in 14. Talked to him for maybe 5 minutes in the locker room. He's like, "It's cool that you're from Ohio and playing in this. I really admire that and everything." And I thought that was cool. And yeah, I've met him a couple other times. I really don't think he remembers who I am. It's just I get it. I'm not a face on the PGA Tour at all, so I get it. But also at the same time, I was having lunch with I think it was me, Dylan Fratelli, Jordan Spieth, and I forget, someone else sat down with us at the table. And Spieth was just getting his food to go to take back to his RV. And Jack came and sat with us for 5 minutes and talked with us. And he's like, "Yeah, I've got my fraternity brothers in here from Ohio State." And we look over in player dining, and I think it was Monday or Tuesday afternoon, and there's like all these, like, they're all between the ages of probably 78 and 82, and they're all just throwing back beers like it's nothing and sitting there and dining. It was kind of incredible to watch, and just kind
You
of cool
sure
to
they
see.
weren't milkshakes?
Some of them had milkshakes. I think I had 4 or 5 that week. They're just addicting. But yeah, it was kind of cool to see that. But yeah, I don't think Jack knows who I am. I met Barbara that week, and she's a sweetheart. She's incredible. But Jack, I mean, Jack is similar to Tiger. I mean, I can't imagine
Tiger
the
doesn't know who
media.
you are?
No, no, I've never even met Tiger. I got within 20 feet of him in Mexico this fall, and I started shaking basically. So and then I bladed a chip shot in front of him. So yeah, who that's another story to come. But yeah, I just yeah, I get it. But I wish I had a relationship with them, but it's just, I don't know. I'm just not a face, I guess. But maybe if I catch fire here, maybe they'll one day read about me in a tweet or something.
Well, I'm not letting you off without that story. You bladed a chip in
Oh
front of
God,
Tiger. What
yeah,
happened?
yeah. So we were at the Worldwide Technologies Championship in Cabo and playing a practice round. It's me and Ryan Palmer, and we're on the par five. I think it's 14 was the par five, 13 or 14, one of the holes, and it's got like this backstop on the back of the green, and we're figuring out how we can use it and whatnot. Then there's a huge like fall off area and then a collection area, and I'm down there looking, and these two carts pull up, and I'm like, what? Like just two random golf carts, and who gets out of one of them is none other than Tiger Woods, who designed the golf course, and he's there for the week, and he comes up and he stands on the back edge of the green, and I walk up and I'm like, oh my god, like it's actually him, like holy
Ryan,
shit.
him and Ryan have to have a relationship.
I They said a couple things to each other, and I remember like I was like, holy shit, it's actually Tiger Woods, like I he's my like he's one of the reasons why I play. Like he made it look so cool back in the day, like early 2000, all of 2000s basically. And I was like, well, now I have a decision to make. I can go up and introduce myself, or I can go hit some more chip shots and practice. And I was like, I'll go practice. He'll appreciate that. He's got the Mamba mentality type of thing. So yeah, I'll go practice, hit some more chip shots. And the very first one I hit, I go down in this collection area. I was like, well, you probably shouldn't have chosen this area because it's pretty much death down here. Like you're not getting this up and down. And I open up my 60 degree and I try to hit this flop shot and I send it about 40 yards over my caddy's head. And he goes, what was that about? And I was like, look to your right. And he looks and he goes, oh, okay. Completely understand it as he chases my ball another 40 yards down the fairway. So
He didn't. You guys didn't make eye contact after that.
he might have looked at me like kind of like, what the hell are you doing? How'd you get in this event? But he drove off shortly after that. So I might have missed my opportunity of saying hi to him or something like that. But who knows? Maybe I'll get another opportunity soon. But
A lighter question to send us out: who
yeah.
wins a championship next? The Guardians, Browns, or Cavaliers?
Oh my gosh, such a hard question. The Cavs have one, so I'm happy with that. Even though they are starting to look more and more like a championship team, starting to play like one. The Guardians have had two really good chances in my lifetime, 95 and then 90, well, three, 95,
97.
97, and 2016. 2016 was heartbreaking. And I swear if the Browns ever win one, Lake Erie or Cleveland may just fall off into Lake Erie. So I just for the party aspect of it, I want to say the Browns. I think all the pieces are in place. Maybe just maybe a star wide receiver who's maybe a little more in his prime is all we need, but who knows at this point. It really sucks. Like the Cavs had like with LeBron coming back, like well, even his first stint with Cleveland, like they make it to the finals. Who do they have to play? They have to play Popovich and the Spurs, who are some of the best teams of all time. Then when he comes back again, like they finally beat the Warriors. Who do they add? They add Kevin Durant, who's arguably a top 10 player of all time. And it's like, are you kidding me, guys? Like we can't catch a break. And then like the Browns, who's in the AFC? You have the Bills, you have the Ravens with Lamar, who's in the Browns division. Then you have Burrow down in Cincinnati with Jamar Chase. Then you have Patrick Mahomes, who's probably the best quarterback ever to play the game, and it's maybe up until Brady, but his career's still young. But I mean, we just can't catch a break.
Yeah,
But
Flacco.
yeah, hey, if he would have done it all, God, he would have played. Let's see, if he would have played like four regular season games, one playoff
You think
game,
you think you would have won the
divisional game,
division?
divisional game, AFC Championship game, Super Bowl. He would have won a total of 8 games for the Browns, and he would have had a statue had he won a Super Bowl. And he would have played most of his career, all of it, with the hated Ravens. With I don't even want to get into that story with them leaving and becoming the Ravens. So yeah, You're getting me fired up here, Jeff.
I was
I
going to
don't know
say, I
what's
was
going on.
trying to send you out right now. I feel like we could do a whole other podcast just on Cleveland
Yeah,
sports.
yeah. I
But
may have to take my daughter on a walk after
yeah, no, I want to, you have been awesome, Justin.
Oh,
Obviously, I
thanks, Jeff.
wanted, to tell this story, wanted to get to know you better. And as I was starting, I said to myself, it's funny. I don't, a lot of people like what happened, what was your life like from 2011 to 2021? And I think that obviously once you're in the PGA Tour spotlight, people get to know you a lot better. But perhaps, I loved being able to tell that story today
Mhm.
of your journey to get here. And I hope that people enjoy this. And I know that you have so many fans out there in Ohio and you're building so many beyond. And I look forward to watching you the rest of the season and getting that first win and playing in that first major.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate everything. This was fun. We'll have to do it again.
Thanks, Justin. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you to Justin. Thank you for taking that time. We did that on a Saturday morning, actually, the Saturday morning of the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro Am. Made it work. Thank you so much for being so open, Justin. Obviously, there's a lot of heavy stuff that was in there. There's also some of the, under the covers sort of PGA Tour, Korn Ferry Tour access, and all of the things that you might look at someone like Justin Lauer, and his name. You saw him on your DraftKings fantasy, DFS list. You saw him on the betting board. You saw him pop up at some of those events. He brought up the Fortinet, where he was right in the mix, the Rocket Mortgage. But to get to know him as a person, like I said at the beginning, I hope that maybe you've become a fan after listening to that. Thanks so much for listening to Eyes on Golf. Remember to follow, subscribe, do whatever you got to do. I am Jeff Eisenband. I'll see you on the air for the Mexico Open at Vedanta on PGA Tour Live, and I'll see you next week for another episode of Eyes on Golf.